is Win News.
Tonight, details of an inquiry into the Hazelwood mine fire. The federal government under pressure to honour its education funding agreement. And a choppy start to the Marley Point overnight yacht race. Good evening, I'm Bruce Roberts. Also tonight, all fires in East Gippsland declared contained. The man who led the Royal Commission into the Black Saturday bushfires will lead an independent inquiry into the Hazelwood mine fire. The Honourable Bernard Teague will lead a board of inquiry with similar powers to a Royal Commission.
Disaster in the valley.
Morwell residents led a protest from GDF Sewer's head office to the steps of State Parliament.
It's not good enough. This has been going on for over 4 weeks now. How long can we breathe the air?
Inside, the Premier revealed the details of an independent inquiry. Led by the Honourable Bernard Teague, who headed up the Royal Commission into Black Saturday, the Board of Inquiry will consider all aspects of the fire,
including how the fire was started and how it spread into the coal mine, the regulatory regime which applied to the Hazelwood mine, the adequacy and effectiveness of the emergency response, and the adequacy of information flow and support for affected communities.
GDF Sewers today joined a host of agencies in welcoming the inquiry. Like Victoria's Fire Services Commissioner and the Chief Health Officer, the company says it will cooperate fully.
The health of the people of Morwell has been our first priority from the beginning.
In many aspects, I think we've had trouble communicating the complexity of what this fire has been and the impacts on communities.
The terms of reference are yet to be finalised, but the government says the inquiry will be convened in Morwell by the end of the month. The Board of Inquiry will have until August to submit its report, which the government says will be made public before the election. With 90% contained, the fire was yesterday declared controlled. But there's been little reprieve for Morwell residents, who were this morning warned of more high-level smoke impacts.
We're going to get smoke out of the mine for some time. There has to be a realisation of that.
Visibility was reduced and residents were told to go inside and close their doors and windows.
The air quality over the past couple of days has not been nearly as bad as we saw in the early days and the early couple of weeks of the fire.
Authorities still can't say when the some 600 relocated residents can return home.
We will make an announcement about the lifting of our temporary relocation advice as soon as we possibly can.
24-hour shifts will operate right through to the 18th of March, and if necessary will extend past that. But we've certainly got a window for another week of significant work to secure the last parts of this fire.
The Fire Services Commissioner today praised the tireless work of the 7,000 individual firefighters involved.
Some of those have returned second and third times, and we're now well over 13,500 firefighters that have actually fought this fire over 29 days.
Brooke Van Newton, Win News.
The state government has set up a judicial inquiry with far-reaching powers to investigate the month-long fire at the Hazelwood Open Cut. The inquiry will be headed by former Supreme Court Judge Bernard Teague, the same man who presided over the Black Saturday Royal Commission. It'll examine how the fire started, as well as the adequacy of the response by government agencies and the mine's private owner. More from our state politics reporter, Francis Bell.
As a small band of Morwell residents and supporters took their concerns directly to Parliament,
We need help. Disaster in the valley.
their calls for an inquiry were answered.
It's time for a full, open and independent inquiry into all aspects of this fire.
It'll be headed by former Supreme Court Justice Bernard Teague, who also led the Bushfires Royal Commission. His terms of reference are yet to be finalised, but will broadly include how the fire started and spread into the mine, the emergency response, the information given to the community by government agencies and the mine operator GDF Suez, and the regulatory regime governing the mine.
The Board of Inquiry will have the power to compel private companies, employees, whatever other witnesses it thinks appropriate to give evidence and to give evidence on oath.
It'll also have the power to demand documents and hold public hearings.
We want to be consulted about the terms of reference on the judicial review. We don't want to be left in the dark. We don't want to pass in the buck, to the next government and the next government.
The inquiry will start by the end of the month and will have a secretariat based in Morwell. In the meantime, work to fully extinguish the blaze continues. Air quality concerns are lingering and the political argument rages on.
Why did it take nearly a month for the Minister with responsibility for community support, emergency relief and recovery coordination to even set foot in Morwell.
The functions that have needed to happen have happened and delivered the services to the people of the Morwell community.
The Board of Inquiry will be asked to report to government by the end of August. The Premier says, providing that timeline is kept, he'll release the report and provide an in-principle response to its recommendations before the November election. Frances Bell, ABC News, Melbourne.
Morwell anger on the march as the Premier sets up an inquiry into the Hazelwood blaze. The man who led the Royal Commission into Black Saturday will investigate the Hazelwood mine fire. The Premier announced a wide-ranging inquiry into the blaze which has choked the Latrobe Valley for the past month. David Woywood has the story.
Morwell's burning issue today flared up in the city.
Disaster in the valley! We need help!
Angry Latrobe Valley residents marched to the offices of Hazelwood mine operator GDF Suez demanding answers.
It's not good enough. This has been going on for over 4 weeks now. How long can we breathe the air?
It's time that they stood up and told us what's really going on.
And the Premier agrees, unveiling details of an independent inquiry into the fire.
A full, open and independent inquiry into all aspects of this fire.
The investigation will be headed by former Judge Bernard Teague. The terms of reference are yet to be finalised, but the Premier says the inquiry will review the mine's operations, the emergency response and the flow of information to affected communities. The Attorney-General says the inquiry will have full coercive powers to compel individuals, companies and their employees to give evidence. GDF Suez says it welcomes the review, as has the opposition leader.
It'll be an opportunity to get to the bottom of just how botched Dennis Napthine's efforts have been.
So far, the government has handed out almost $1.3 million in personal hardship grants and more than $600,000 to help people who've left town.
What is happening in the valley is a massive health disaster.
Justice Teague and his team now with 5 months to get to the bottom of it. David Woywood, 10 Eyewitness News.
Authorities have gathered in the Latrobe Valley to reassure residents the coal mine fire remains a priority. Mark O'Brien joins us. Mark, what has been the reaction to the inquiry?
Well, Stephen, this inquiry looms as a very important chapter in this entire debate. 14,000 people live at Morwell and in many ways they've all been affected to a greater or lesser degree. And I can tell you that many people feel that they've been left in the lurch by the authorities. And today the authorities have conceded that the communication with the local community probably hasn't been as good as it could have been. There is that sense of unease here. It's about the smoke, but it's not just about the smell, it's what's in the smoke, the dust, the ash and those all-important tiny particles which affect the air quality. Some 1,800 people have presented to the local community assessment area to check their health. Now, very importantly this afternoon, Dr. Rosemary Lester announced that there would be, or they are considering, I should say, considering an inquiry into the long-term health effects of the fire.
It's always good to take the opportunity to learn more. So, as I said, we're in discussions about that and we'll be consulting with the Morwell community about whether that's a good thing for them, and then we'll make an announcement once that's decided.
And as you can see, Stephen, it's clear now at the blaze because that's the wind pushing the smoke away from the town, but it's so changeable. It could be back, it will be back at least, we know that, and possibly another 7 days of this smoke that comes and goes as they try to get on top of the fire. Stephen?
Thanks, Mark. Mark O'Brien in Morwell.